One of the reasons for the significant growth of common interest communities was the passage of Proposition 13 in California, which limited tax revenues. And at that point in time, municipalities essentially said to developers, if you're going to build something, we don't want any new burden at all coming out of this community. You need to organize it as some kind of homeowner association, condominium, or the like. You need to internalize all of the costs that would come out of this development and set up your own private little residential community. So this has been actually cited by quite a number of scholars as the big spur to the boom of common interest communities. So they are somewhat chagrined when they're accused of secession. You can think as well of common interest communities as very much part of the American tradition, perhaps of utopian communities. Lots of these communities throughout our history, they're not for me, they might not be for you, but they're for somebody, and we have tolerated those indeed. This is one that I saw, a new one, which I will say is not for me, but I guess it's for someone. This is the Citadel. It's in Idaho. It's a community that's built to be ready for environmental Armageddon or Armageddon following some kind of nuclear or conventional war. And this is from their FAQ on their website as they're trying to make their pitch for what they're doing. The model will be similar in many ways to that of Disneyland. Poor Walt is rolling over in his grave. It is walled, gated private property with controlled access. People pay to enter and agree to the rules because they see value in doing so. It is all based on a voluntary agreement between the owners of the property and those who want to come inside. Millions of people come to Disneyland and interact peacefully, surprisingly similar to what we are doing. To each their own, yes? Okay, de Tocqueville, going on almost 200 years ago, saw us as a country of associations. Americans of all ages, all conditions, and all dispositions constantly form associations. And he describes this as something uniquely American. The issue has been placed into sort of a false binary paradigm. Secession or not. Gated communities, good or bad. As if we have to make an actual choice between the two. I think we're able to understand common interest communities in a more sophisticated way. And so a term that I've come up with is this notion of augmented federalism. Look, we live under a federalist form of government. We have loyalties and obligations to a variety of governments, to our local government, perhaps a county government, to a state government, to a national government. The fact that we serve one, pay taxes to one, does not excuse us from serving the other. I think we can see people's participation on a voluntary basis in a common interest community as joining yet another government. The fact that they're there does not excuse them from their obligations to the municipality. And they can remain part of that and should remain part of that as well. I think as a second matter, there are serious income and urban issues that our country does indeed face, but those ought to be addressed as the separate issues that they really are, rather than somehow through the guise of an attack on CICs. Okay, next issue. CICs versus the individual owner. It's often perceived, especially by an aggrieved owner, that common interest communities oppress individuals, might oppress individuals. And for an ironic take on this, look at this cartoon. This I'll have to read for you. The sign says, "Welcome to Condoville and the illusion of owning your own property." So this says it all for those individuals who have problems. And in particular, what disputes seem to boil down to in these common interest communities between individuals and the community, they're about substance, where an owner's goals and aspirations for her property can be frustrated by the application and enforcement by the community of the covenants in a particular situation, and may veer into intrusion with personal autonomy. Substantive problems are especially acute where the association adds a new rule or changes a rule after a person has bought into the community. The second area where there's often conflict is process, where the individual owner feels tyranny of the majority, that the association is picking on him, that he's being singled out for some kind of high-handed treatment. Now, Evan McKenzie, in his noted book, Privatopia, really buys into this critique, the community associations, featuring a form of private government that takes American preference for private home ownership and too often turns it into an ideology of hostile privatism. Preservation of property values is the highest social goal to which other aspects of community life are subordinated. Rigid, intrusive, and often petty rule enforcement makes a caricature of benign management, and the belief in rational planning is distorted into an emphasis on conformity for its own sake. Okay, he doesn't like this. There are certainly reports that you see in media outlets and in court cases that involve covenant enforcement that frustrates owner aspirations in a serious way or looks just foolish or wrong. Now, we need to be wary of the media reports. There's, of course, the sensationalist. They're not a fair sample of the vast number of CIC owner interactions. Media reports, surprisingly, sometimes get it wrong. And there's often a decent resolution of the issue that never gets reported because it's not as interesting, sensationalist, and won't lead the Live at 5 broadcasts in such a neat way. But with that said, let's look at a little sensationalism. Let me walk you through these. There are so many of these. As you can see, I really had trouble whittling them down, so the backbenchers I'm going to have to read for. First one, Associated Press item. Marines' parents sued over sign of support in their Bossier City, Louisiana front yard. They had a 3-by-6 foot sign, a picture of their son in uniform who was being deployed to Afghanistan for 14 months, and they had a text, "Our son defends our freedom," and the Homeowners Association sued. There was a ban on signs. Next one. Homeowners Association removed and confiscated mezuzot posted by Jewish owners on their doorposts because this violated a rule prohibiting objects on doors and in hallways. There's similar cases with Christmas wreaths hanging on doors. That was a case that went up to the U.S. Court of Appeals, 7th Circuit in Chicago. Next one, from CBS Philly TV station. Bucks County woman fined by Homeowners Association for colored Christmas lights. Now, I was not fully aware of this, but there's a big distinction among homeowners associations between white Christmas lights and colored Christmas lights. Often there are rules that permit the white Christmas lights as long as they're not blinking, but colored lights are not approved. So she had her colored Christmas lights up. There was actually a vote by the members. 19 were for the white lights, 14 were for colored lights, 5 for blinking colored lights, and the association ruled white, please.